You know why I really love Nick Hood as a minister? I watched his father do it, and he took over for the church, and he was one of us, but he really turned out to be a great minister. I know it's hard, and that's something that I know that all ministers may not be doing what they're doing because for the right reasons, but I know it's hard. I know he's a beautiful man, and we've been knowing each other for over 50 years. I believe in him. He's inspired me in so many ways to do what I'm doing and try to be the best at it. Make sure you watch Nick Hood's ministries. You'll never be the same.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something every step of the way. When things seem to be going wrong, that's God's way of opening another door. I am convinced that God has been directing me every step of my life.
On the Word Network. This is a new ministry which is just starting. Reverend Hood needs your help in sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and His power throughout the world. If you would be so kind as to send a donation to Nicholas Hood III Ministries of any amount, Reverend Hood will send you a free complimentary copy of his book of original personal prayers and beautiful photographs entitled The Test, The Strength, The Endurance, and The Way Out. Welcome to Nicholas Hood III Ministries, a ministry of hope, spiritual inspiration, personal power guided by Christian love. May the power of God's Holy Spirit fall upon you as you sit back and enjoy today's program. I introduce you now to Pastor Nicholas Hood III.
Love endures all things. Let me say it again. Love endures all things. The Apostle Paul tells us that love is patient, love is kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It's not irritable, resentful, or rude. Love does not insist on its own way, but rather love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And if you want to score your love, if you've ever wondered how deep is my love, how good is my love, what's the quality of my love, ask yourself, can my love bear all things? After everything else, after being patient and kind and not jealous or boastful, can my love bear all things? Now, to be honest, when we first fall in love, I don't think we think about bearing all things. I never thought about it. I got married at 24, started dating my wife at 21. The last thing I was thinking about was bearing all things. We were both healthy, energetic, careers are on the rise. Life was just a bowl of cherries, as far as I was concerned. And now that, we're a little older, I look at life and I say, well, I guess we're living out what the Apostle Paul talked about when he says, love bears all things. There's some people who will love you until you go to jail. Some people will love you until you run out of money. Some will love you until you get sick. And when you get sick, sometimes some folk don't want anything to do with you. Some folk will love you until you get addicted to drugs or overcome with alcohol. But Paul says love bears all things. And to me, what that means is that you've committed to stick together, as I like to say during the wedding ceremony, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do you part. And to me, that is such an all-encompassing vow that the couple, usually young couples, sometimes the older couples, but couples stand before an altar and they make that vow of commitment to one another, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor. And to me, what that means is we're committing to bear all things. And I want to talk for just a minute about how do you, if you're going to bear all things, but when you start off often young and in love, you're not thinking about bearing all things, but how do we prepare ourselves to bear all things? And the first thing I would say to a young couple is, if you want to know if you're able to bear all things, is start with the quality of your young love. Maybe somebody's looking at this and you say, but Reverend, I'm not young. I'm an old person. And maybe I've found somebody in the nursing home that I like. And maybe I found somebody in the assisted living. And we've both been married. And maybe I just want to have a friend. And maybe that'll grow into marriage. Maybe not. But how do I build a platform for love, and a love that can bear all things? I'd say, number one, choose love wisely. And what do I mean by that? That means when you're dating, when you are getting to know somebody, ask yourself, is this person patient with me? Am I patient with them? Is this person kind to me? Let's use a couple other words for being kind. Are they nice? Are they polite? Are they gracious around me? Are they willing to share their food with me? Are they willing to share their time with me? Does this person insist on having their own way all the time? When picking what movie to stream tonight, do they want to pick a movie? Do they always have to have the last word? Or will they let me see the movie that I want sometime? If I want to look at football and they want to look at the ballet, am I willing to subvert my feelings for football long enough and to sit through the ballet, so that I can make this other person feel like their feelings are worthwhile? And to me, that is one of the most important stages of love. One of the most important stages of love is in the very beginning, when you first start to meet a person, when you look at their smile, and when you see how do they react to your hopes and your dreams. How do they react to the things that you don't like, the things that you do like? And the more accustomed we become to this other person, and the more we become drawn to them, the more we allow our friendship to develop, and friendship can develop into love. That is really the platform for bearing all and enduring all things. It's hard to endure all things if you don't have much to begin with. But to me, that's where it starts. It really starts with choosing wisely, to try to figure out, is this a person who I really, really like? Do I really love them? And if I really love a person, then I am going to be with that person in season and out of season. I'm going to be with them when they're happy. I'll be with them when they're sad. I've been married 48 years. And one of the things I've learned, and I learned this relatively early, is that we dated 3 years. But in the 3 years that we dated, I think my wife had her guard up. And maybe I did too. And if there's somebody looking at this who could say, I didn't tell the person I married everything about me, and they didn't tell me everything about them. But one of the things that you'll find in a long-term relationship is the longer you are together, the closer you begin to grow. And in growing closer together, what happens is you start to let your guard down. And everybody has dirty little secrets. And those dirty little secrets may not be yours. It may be your mother's or your father's. Every family has some mess. But when we're dating, we don't want to air the mess. But the more a person begins to know you and really trust you, that's the point when they really start to let you know what they're all about. And, some people say, well, if we are intimate with one another, sexually intimate, that in that whole process, we grow closer, we become one. And I say, yeah, but some people can fake their way through sex. Some people are good at faking. But the longer you get to know a person, the better you get to know a person, the more you get beyond faking. And the more you get beyond faking, the more you begin to show the other person something you never showed them before. You begin to tell people. You tell that person something that you never told before. Matter of fact, in a real love, you will tell your lover, you'll tell your wife or your husband, you'll tell them things you wouldn't tell to anybody else because you're getting to know each other. And that is really the platform for being able to bear all things, if that makes sense. What I'm saying is, if you want to be able to bear all things, and frankly, a lot of the stuff that needs bearing with happens later in life, but some of it happens older, when we're older. Terminal illness. When one comes down with terminal illness, you're bearing all things. When somebody gets fired from their job, you are bearing all things. When your wife, husband, or lover gets to the point where their hips don't work anymore, their knees don't work, maybe they're a candidate for knee surgery or hip surgery, or they've had the surgery and now they're rebounding from it. If you really love each other, you will bear that. Having children that force you to stay up at night, get up early in the morning, cook for them, clean for them, prepare them, help them with their homework, and then you still have a job at the same time. That's bearing all things. And it's a heavy price that we pay to bring a little life into this world, to make a life feel comfortable and good about themselves. But if you want to be able to bear all things, as the Apostle Paul says, what love really does, and that's the last one of the things that he says. We hope all things, endure all things, believe all things. We bear all things. You can't do that unless you've developed love to begin with. And so I'm going to wrap it up right here, but then I want you to stick around, because when I come back, I want to talk a little bit more about bearing all things. Thanks so much for being with me. Call a friend, tell him Nick Hood is taking a break, but he's coming right back, and he wants to see you. God bless.
America used to be considered a godly country. It doesn't seem to be that way to me now. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but it's so many things they're okaying for the wrong reasons. There's not godly reason. People need to really open up the Bible, the Bible, and look in it, and really get it into their heart. And this, the way Reverend Hood is doing this is a comfortable way. It's not forcing anything on people. It's a comfortable way and a loving way for it to continue to move in that direction.
The way Reverend Hood presents it, you can understand it, and it makes you want to delve into the Bible even more so that you can see more, because it seems like the program goes off too fast. We need the bread of life.
We really do.
These days, we need it more than ever. And Reverend Hood's ministry on TV is giving us our bread.
Today I've been talking about love bears all things. This is what the Apostle Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7. this is really the conclusion of what Paul is saying. He's saying that love believes all things, hopes all things, and love bears all things. It endures all things. And you can't endure love unless you have built love. And the way we build love is in trust. The way we build love is gradually. It doesn't happen overnight. But we have to open ourselves up in trust enough to some other person to let them know that I really think the world of you. As Paul says, I believe in you. I have hope in you. And because I believe in you and I hope in you, and because frankly, I just like you, I love you, that I am willing to build a life with you. And I'm willing to share my life with you. And part of that sharing is enduring. And hopefully, in love, we get to experience a lot of sharing, a lot of pleasure, a lot of fulfillment, a lot of gratification before the bottom drops out. In some lives, it may seem like the bottom is dropping out a little quicker than others, but the bottom does sometimes drop out. And when the bottom drops out in love, that is the point when you get to see how deep your love really is. And what do I mean by the bottom dropping out? The bottom dropping out would be a severe health challenge. The bottom dropping out might be a financial challenge. The bottom dropping out might be a work professional challenge. The bottom dropping out might be a child who's maladjusted, a child who's troubled. I hear about these school shootings, and very often the school shooting is perpetrated not by an adult, but by a child. And the child who is shooting up the school is a child who very often doesn't feel good about themselves. They don't enjoy the classroom experience. They may not have a lot of friends in school. But what about the poor parent of that child? You can say, well, yeah, Reverend, but what about the parents of the children that he shot up? And that too is important. I'm not trying to diminish it. But what I'm saying is that if you are the parent of a child who wants to shoot up the school, you have a huge challenge on your hands. And, how do you somehow turn that around in a positive kind of way? Maybe to seek out psychological help. Once a child, comes of age, you have all of this stuff that has gone on in their life. And how do you love them enough, bearing, as Paul says, enduring all things? How do you endure by not just tolerating a child who wants to shoot up the school, or a child who is just fixated on getting high, but how do you endure in a positive way? Which means, if I really love you and I'm going to endure you, that means I'm not going to quit on you. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm going to try to get you help because I am enduring in love for you. I'm going to give you more of my time because I am committed to endurance. Endurance is not just strength. Endurance is the ability to perpetuate that strength. You'll find some people are good at sprinting. They can run a 100-yard dash really well. But if you ask them to run a 200-yard or 200-meter run or 400-meter run or a mile, some people can't, most people can't run a mile as fast as they can run 100 yards. And then when you start talking about a marathon, what is that, 26 point some miles? That is endurance. When your body gets to the point where you have totally expended all of your energy and you still have another mile or two to go in that race, that takes endurance. And using that same analogy, for the parent of the child who doesn't feel good about themselves, that parent needs an enduring kind of love. For the adult, love, where the person you love has become demented. The person you love doesn't know where they are. They don't know who they are. Matter of fact, they may not know who you are. How do you love a person who doesn't know you anymore? That takes endurance. How do you love a person who doesn't feel good about themselves? Maybe they know who they are, but they just don't feel good about themselves. And it's very easy to quit. It's very easy to walk away from that kind of relationship. But what the Apostle Paul says is that love endures all things. Not some things, not a few things, but love endures all things. And so I encourage you to ask yourself, what kind of endurance do I have, and what does it take to build endurance? I think what you're doing right now is one of the things that could be a starter level for building endurance. Watching a Christian program like this, going to church will help you build your endurance. Reading the Bible will help you to build your spiritual endurance. Trying to interpret the Bible and fit the Bible into your personal life will help you with your spiritual endurance. Being a part of your greater church life, not just going to church, but being involved in an auxiliary of the church. Get to know some people in the church. Be in a prayer circle in the church. What you will find is that that's the kind of thing that will help you to build your life so that you will have endurance. I have some tools for spiritual endurance. Number one, every day I write little prayers. And that to me is a way of doing a couple things. One, I write it for you, for anybody who wants to read it. But frankly, the whole process of writing those prayers forces me to build myself up spiritually. I find myself, even for prayers that I don't write down, there are more prayers that I don't write than I do write. But for the prayers that I don't write, very often it's almost like stream of consciousness. When I'm riding down the street and I see somebody sleeping on the corner, I pray for that person. When a person cuts me off in their car, their truck, I find myself praying for them. And what I find, when I hear the former president talking about immigrants shooting and eating dogs and cats, I pray for him. Even when they admit that that's not true, I pray for him. When I think about what's happening in Ukraine today with Russia invading it, I pray for Ukraine. I pray for Russia. When I think about what's happening in Palestine today, in Gaza, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, when I think about Lebanon, when I think about all these places of the world where there's conflict, I pray little prayers. I'm at an age now where a lot of my peer group, people I went to high school with, people I went to elementary school with, are starting to get sick. And I for the life of me, I don't know where illness comes from. But I pray to the Lord for healing. I pray to the Lord for understanding. I pray to the Lord. And sometimes I feel like I'm almost in a constant state of prayer. I don't know if you can imagine that. But imagine me saying, I feel like I'm almost in a continual state of prayer. Because I'm praying all the time. I'm praying for the lady who doesn't have enough money. I'm helping a lady right now with 6 children in Detroit. Praying for her. She's functionally homeless. And I'm helping that lady. We started with 6 backpacks. clear plastic. You have to have a clear plastic backpack, see-through, for school. I guess so you don't walk into school with a gun. We're praying for that lady, who wants 6 pairs of school uniforms for her children. And I'm praying for her. And I'm praying for you. I'm praying for Miss Quintina Harris from Charlotte, North Carolina, who asked me to pray for her because of bad reactions to her medicine. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for the single mother. I'm praying for the single father. I'm praying for the coupled people, the married and the unmarried. I'm praying for those that have children. I'm praying for those that don't have children. I'm praying for those who want to have children. And in the process of praying for people, I find that I am spiritually helping myself to bear all things. And I encourage you to strive to bear all things in your life. I need your help with this ministry. Miss Quintina Harris told me she likes this show, this worship service, because she said, you're not like everybody else. And I said, well, Miss Quintina Harris, I'm still pastoring a church. And I said, I've been pastoring a church for 48 years. And I said, frankly, I'm just the person that you see on the TV. And she said, well, you're not like everybody else. I said, well, I hope that's not a bad thing. But I am praying for Miss Quintina Harris. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. I'm praying for the United States of America. I'm really worried about the huge disconnect that we have in our country right now. I'm worried about the people who have a hard time dealing with the after effects of slavery. I worry about the people who are trying to fit in. I'm worrying about the fear mongers, the hate mongers. I worry about the people who can't find love, who can't find themselves giving love. And most of all, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you might hope all things, that you might endure all things, that you might believe all things, that you and I might bear all things. God bless you. God keep you. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for watching today's program. We hope you've been blessed in a powerful way. Just knowing you took the time to watch today's broadcast is a great encouragement to Pastor Nick Hood. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, we ask that you mail a tax-free donation to Nicholas Hood Ministries at 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan, 48201.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking to us every step of the way. God is trying to show you something.